Okay, this week's Parsha is Bechukotai. In the word Bechukotai, the Hachaim brings 42 different explanations. Now, in addition, there's a very interesting legend behind these 42 explanations. There's two versions of the story. The second version I recently just heard. I'll first tell you the one that's more accepted, and then I'll tell you the second one. The Hachaim, at a certain point in his life, was very involved in giving out meat to Talmidei Chachamim, especially younger Avreichim. It was very hard to find meat, especially where it was, and it was very expensive. He took it upon himself to distribute it, and then if there was left over, he would sell it to the regular people, the business people, the Hamoinam. One time, a certain balabas came, bought a piece of meat, and was not happy with the piece of meat that he got compared to an Avreich, a young Koil student, and he said something disparagingly about the piece of meat that he got in relation to the other person. Not that he disparaged the person, but he felt that, why is he getting this and I'm not? And the Hachaim was silent. He didn't say anything. The story goes that night he had a dream, that they told him that in Shemayim, they ruled that he should die, because he didn't stand up for the honor of a Talmid Chacham. Remember, we're talking about the Hachaim, who is holy of holies. Instead, he has the option that he can go into exile for a year, to Galus. And the thing was, he cannot be in the same place every Shabbos, which means every Shabbos he had to be in a different place. That's what he did. He left his town. He lived in Morocco. He left his town and he started his Galus for a year. I don't know if it was the first week, the second week, but right away in the beginning, he came to a certain town, and he parked himself in a corner outside the town. And Friday night he came to, I remember the story was Erev Shabbos, right before Shabbos, he came up with some of the Pshatim in Bechukotai. And then Friday night in Shul, the Rav got up and said, from Shemayim I heard that the Heilig Hachaim was Mechadish 20 Pirushim on the word Bechukotai. And he said it over. And before he said it over, the Hachaim got up and said, no, not the Heilig Hachaim, Reb Chaim ben Atar. And they went crazy. What are you talking about? How could you make fun of Reb Chaim ben Atar? The Heilig Hachaim, whose fame was widespread. Okay. The Rav said, leave him alone, he's my guest, don't say anything. That Shabbos morning, the Hachaim was Mechadish another 20, sorry, it's not 20, it was another 15, let's say, right? 16. Chidushim in the word Bechukotai. And again, that morning during davening, the Rav got up and said in Shemayim, they revealed to him another 15, 16 Chidushim that the Hachaim Hakadosh, the Heilig Hachaim, revealed to the world. I want to repeat it over. And again, the Hachaim got up and said, no, he's not the Hachaim Hakadosh. He's just plain Reb Chaim ben Atar. Okay, now he was not known at that time as the Hachaim. The Hachaim was the sefer that he printed on his way to Eretz Yisrael. He left Morocco, and on his way to Eretz Yisrael, he stopped off for a period of time in Livorno, Italy. The reason for that was twofold. Number one, Livorno at that time was a very wealthy community, so he was trying to raise funds, A, for his sefer, and B, also, he took with him 20 to 40 students to go and live in Eretz Yisrael. So he was raising funds. And in addition, Livorno was the center of the printing press of the world.
Wasn't Rashi around that time?
Rashi was not around. Rashi lived in the 1100s. The Hachaim was in the 1700s. So that was the center of the printing press. So where else would you go? So that's why he went there. There's different stories about that. Interestingly enough, not to mix different things up, the brother of the Zera Shimshon went with the Hachaim from Italy, because the Zera Shimshon was from Italy. He met up with the Hachaim in Italy, and together they went to Eretz Yisrael. So there's some sort of connection between the Hachaim and the Zera Shimshon family. Excuse me. Either way, when the Hachaim again got up and said, no, his name is Chaim ben Atar, the people went crazy. You're talking about the God Lador. Now, the Rav who was hosting the Hachaim was a little embarrassed. Okay. On the way home, he said, listen, you got to stop this. It's blasphemy. It's no games. You don't make fun of a rabbi. Hachaim didn't say anything. Again, towards the evening, towards mincha time, the Hachaim came up with the last 16, I remember the number, pshatim in the word Bechukotai. During Shalosh Shudas, the Rav said in Shemayim, they revealed to me another chelik of the pshatim, a total of 42 different explanations in the word Bechukotai, from the Heiliger Hachaim Hakadosh, the Heiliger Chaim Ben Atar. He said, no, it's not Rabbi Chaim Ben Atar, it's Chaim Ben Atar. That's it. The Rav had enough. He started yelling at him and screaming at him. The whole town said, you're mechutzav, you're megadif. You send yourself straight into prison until you admit you did what was wrong. And he publicly said what I did was wrong. Okay. The Hachaim didn't say anything. Comes into prison, and all of a sudden, Matzah Shabbos is over, and all of a sudden, in the middle of that desert. Morocco is a desert country. In the middle of the summer, because it's Bechukotai time, right? It's June almost. The whole earth started to shake. A massive thunderstorm hit Morocco like they've never seen before. It was a strange thing. It was almost never, and it was booming and thundering and lightning and whatever you can imagine was going on. And the Rav was getting nervous. What's going on over here? All of a sudden he heard a voice. Either he fell asleep or he heard a voice. How could you allow the great Hachaim to be in jail? What's the problem? The problem is the Hachaim can't make Havdalah. And if you can't make Havdalah, the gates of Gehenna are closed. We have to send people back to Gehenna. As everybody knows, Shabbos, Gehenna is closed. There's no fires. And there's a backflow, so to speak. And that's what you're seeing in Morocco and the world, that the world is not able to sustain itself because we need Gehenna to open up. Otherwise, it's like a backflow backing up. He says, what are you talking about? Hachaim in jail? What are you talking about? And then it hit him that this guest that he thought was a stranger was really the Hachaim. He ran to the Hachaim, he apologized, please forgive me. No. He says, you're right. I shouldn't have said what I said because you people obviously were mechabed or Hachaim, not me per se. Okay. That Matzah Shabbos he had a dream because he suffered busha and cherpa, he was thrown into jail. It was as if he was in Golus for the year, he can go back home. His kapara is achieved. That's version one of the story. Without taking too much time, let's quickly say the second version of the story, is that the Hachaim went to find the 10 Shvatim. Were the 10 Shvatim? The legend goes they're on the other side of the Sabbatian River. Nobody knows where it is. There is a chidah, that's a famous story with the chidah that we're going to read actually on Shavuos about Don Hagiladi. It's a separate story for a separate time, but essentially he was a person that came from the 10 Shvatim to save the Jews in Europe. It's a different story how they got there. Whatever the case is, we'll leave it aside. The story goes that the Hachaim found the river, but as the legend goes, the river is impassable during the week because rocks are shooting up and down. The only time you can pass over is Shabbos. The rocks don't shoot up and down. What's the problem? You can't swim on Shabbos. So the Hachaim said the name of Hashem, and the rock stopped. He crossed over, and as soon as he crossed over, within a short period of time, he was arrested. What are you doing here? You must have swam on Shabbos. How else did you get here? And the story goes, he taught them the 42 different shatim of Bechukotai over Shabbos to show that he really was a tzaddik. Okay, that's the second version of the story that I recently just heard. The first version of the story is the more accepted version of the story. So the first pasuk in Bechukotai after this whole introduction is if you go in my chukim, and you watch my mitzvahs, Hashem says, basically everything will be taken care of for you. You'll have food, you'll have plenty food, all of your needs and all of your things that you need to function, to live, will be taken care of. You'll do it. And more importantly, I'll make sure the rain comes in its proper time. Or when you need money, it's going to come when you need it, not afterwards. Amen. The land will give its produce, and the trees of the field will give its fruit. That's the bracha. Your job is to learn. If you seriously learn, I will take care of everything else because I want you to learn. So the Hachaim asks a bunch of different questions. We're not going to do obviously all 42 pshatim today. We'll try to break it up a little bit over the next few shiurim. So it begins in the Hachaim in Pasuk Gimel. Says the Hachaim in Bechukotai telehu. Any questions before we continue? B'taris kahanim amru v'zel l'shonim. The word chukim refers to mitzvahs, my mitzvahs. And it also says the word mitzvahs. So the Hachaim's first question is, I don't understand. If it says chukim, why do you say mitzvahs? So if it says mitzvahs, why do you say chukim? They're the same thing. The Hachaim is going to explain it's not really the same thing. So it says v'zel l'shonim. The following thing it says in Taris kahanim. Yachol elu ha-mitzvahs kishuhu oimer b'es mitzvahs. You may think this refers to the mitzvahs, right? Because it says this mitzvahs. Ma ani mekayim im bechukotai. So what am I achieving when the pasuk says im bechukotai? I already told you my mitzvahs. So the word bechukotai is extra. So we learn out lios amelim b'Torah. The word bechukotai comes to hint to us that not just to learn Torah, but you have to work in Torah. You have to be amul in Torah. Not just reading, but you have to work to understand it, to get the pshat, to get the explanation. Not just reading and just that's not learning Torah. That's just reading
And reviewing.
and reviewing, obviously. V'tam shekara kasav amal haTorah chuka. So very nice. So it should have said im omol b'Torah. If you're omol in Torah, why did it say the word b'chukai? But tzad sheyesh by mitzvah afilu lilmay dvarim shalom depamayim is a murdik thing the Hachaim says. Everybody understands. You go to a doctor, top doctor, and you tell him what was the first 5 books that you learned in order to become a doctor. So he pulls out the biology 1, biology 2, right, advanced thing, and he says, okay, I want you to read it again. What do I have to read it for? I want you to review it. What do I have to review it as a doctor? I already passed 8 years in college. I was a resident for 3 years, and I've been a doctor for 25 years. Well, what do I got to read it for? Right? Okay, you're right. It's too basic. Let's go to the more complex surgery book. I want you to review it. Well, I don't need to take any tests. What do I have to review it for? I'm sure there's something you don't know. I know everything. I've been a doctor for 25 years. And if there's one thing I may have a question, I'll either ask a colleague or I'll open up that chapter. I have to read the whole thing. Correct? Not so the Torah. Who's the biggest Talmud Chacham today? Let's say Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Reb Eliashiv Zatzal, Reb Radi Yosef. He would sit and learn Chumash Rashi. But wait a minute, he's the Gadol Ador. He's busy writing tshuvas, the most complex questions. Why are you learning Chumash Rashi? The answer is twofold. Number one, there's a mitzvah to learn things that you already know. It doesn't make sense. I already know it. Backwards and forwards doesn't make a difference. There's a mitzvah specifically to learn my chukim that you already know. Chukah is a play on words that's already engraved in you. If you learn something that's already engraved with you, that shows me that you really love me, says Hashem. In addition, we understand that every time you learn, you take out something new. That's why Torah is different than all other wisdom. Because once you learn mathematics, so you know mathematics, you're not going to learn anything new. Once you learn biology, okay, I already learned the biology. I'm not going to get anything once I got everything out of it. But the Torah, there's no such thing. Every time you learn more and more, and the proof is, you have 95-year-old tzaddikim that are still learning Chumash and Rashi, and every time they're coming out with a new pshat. That's an unbelievable thing. So the first things that Hachaim says is that there's a mitzvah to learn something that you already learned 2 times, 3 times, and is known to you. It is a decree that Hashem wants you to learn again and again. And the reason, right, or in order that a person should always learn, Baruch Hu caused that people should learn and forget. Because naturally, if a person knows it, he's not going to review it. Right? Not normal nature of a person. So therefore Hashem said, you're going to learn it, and a week later you're going to forget it, so you're going to have to go back and review it again. You're going to come to a new Taisus that you're going to have to learn a Gemara that you already learned 6 months ago, but you don't remember it. So you're going to do it again. I'm a Nachamal. And then afterwards you'll remember it, and then you're going to even find new Pshatim. V'tam omer chukoisai loshin rabim. The next thing that's bothered our Hachaim is, why does it say the word chukoisai, which means many chukim? Yirmois to hint to you l'shtei Torahs. There's 2 Torahs. Chukoisai means there are 2 Torahs. Torah shebiksav and Torah shebapeh. Even though you learn the Chumash every year, You go through the Chumash every year, doesn't make a difference. Next year's again, you have to learn it. And learn it with the same slowness and meticulous thoroughness of going through it. Even though the last 40 years you did it, doesn't make a difference. Do it again. The Torah Shabbat Peh. Now, says Hachaim, very fascinating things. U'Mesoros HaTeva, but if you look at the Mesorah, the tradition that we have, how the word Bechukotai is written, it's written without a vav between the kuf and the lamed. Because really, it should have been written Beis, Ches, Kuf, Vav, Saf, Yud. But there's no vav. Why? Because if you read it without the nukudas, and I'll explain in a second what that means, it reads Bechukotai. Oh, let me just make sure I have the word correctly. It means Bechukasi, in my decree, singular. And the word it says Bechukotai, we know. We should know that the Torah Shabbat Peh is really hidden in the Torah Shabbat. Many halachas we learn are drashas, how we darshan two psukim. The Vilna Gaon, towards the end of his life, didn't learn Gemara anymore. He learned only Chumash and Rashi. But as he learned the psukim, he said, okay, in Sukkah it says this. We're not from the word Beis. From this word Yud, we learn all these halachas. And from this pasuk, because it's compared to another pasuk. So just by chazering the Chumash and Rashi, he chazered the whole Shas. Yerushalmi and Bavli, because everything's really taken from it. Okay? Now, just to explain the last point that we said very well. We know that, and the Tanya brings this down also, the Torah was written without nukudos. Why? Because many words, now, how do we know how to say a word? We have a tradition. Torah says that this is the way you're supposed to say the word. Even though there's certain words you could say it, there's a few different ways. For example, in our pasuk, it says Bechukotai. That's the way the tradition is to say it, and every Jew, wherever he came from, says it. Another proof that the Torah is real, because you had Jews from Morocco who had nothing to do with Jews in Europe, and they say the same word Bechukotai came out the same way. Okay? But it could also be read Bechukasi, in my commandment. So you could have the word said two different ways. One is plural, one is singular. So the Hachaim is saying is that even though in tradition the word is Bechukotai, it could also be read Bechukasi. What's the hint? The hint is that the Torah Shabbat Peh is included in the Torah Shabbat. One decree, the decree that includes the whole Torah Kula. Okay, this is also other things that many other tzaddikim say, that when you learn the Torah, sometimes there's two different ways to say the word. Now we have the right way, the traditional way, but it could also be read in other ways. That's the Tanya. You could look further there what he discusses. So far we have two explanations of the word chukah. One is to teach us that you have to chazer over and over, and the second one is to teach us that Torah Shabbat Peh and Torah Shabbat Ksav. You have to learn day and night. So why does it say chukoisai? 2 times you should go my chukim. That you should learn the chukim twice. Once in the morning, once at night. You should set a specific time every day, that this is the time that you learn. And this is an important point, that it's not just the fact that you're sitting in yeshiva and you're learning 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, or you have a shir in the morning and a shir at night. But if that's the only shir in the morning and you shir at night, or in the morning or at night that you learn, it has to be this time, Yaharing Val Yavo. That's what it means. After 120 years, when we come to Shemaim, they're going to ask us, Kavati Itam B'Torah. Yeah, I learned. No, you didn't. Sure, I learned. Yeah, one night you learned 9 o'clock till 9:30. The next night you learned 9:45 to 10:15. You did learn, but you didn't set a time. This is the time, come may, whatever the expression goes. I can't say it properly. I'm learning. Doesn't make a difference. Okay? If it's 6:30 to 6:45 in the morning, if it's 3:30 to 3:40, whatever that time is Kadosh. That is called Kavati Itim L'Torah. Yes, there's learning. Sometimes things happen, so you, instead of learning from 9 o'clock to 9:30, you learn a little bit later, a little bit earlier. But really, there's a time that you should learn. Nothing can break that time. That's what the Chukotai teaches us, that you should have shir in the morning and a shir at night that is unbreakable. That specific time. Another thing that we learn, the word Chukotai, the fact that it's plural, teaches us that there's an obligation in 2 things when you learn. One is to learn on your own. And the other thing is to teach other people. The ksiv is, it says in the pasuk, "V'limadatem oisem es b'neichem v'shinantam." It says, number one, you should learn it to yourself and you should teach it. Lezam Bechukotai lashon rabim lilmoid ulalamed lishma v'lasas ka'amru v'smitzayse tishma v'sisam asam. Says the Hachaim, one final point before he starts going to the next pshatim. Why does it say in Bechukotai teilechu? You should go in my chukim, or if you walk in my chukim. What do you mean? Should have said if you follow my things, not if you walk, right? V'tam amru lashon halicha, which means the correct grammatical structure of the pasuk, or the correct grammatical term should have been if you follow my laws. In Bechukotai tishmoru, like it says by the mitzvahs. Yes, mitzvah said tishmoru. What does it mean if you walk in my statutes? What do you mean if it walks in my statutes? Hachaim says a beautiful thing. There's a mitzvah shetzarach lasik v'Torah fil balichasa. Even when you're walking, there's a mitzvah to walk, to learn. Now I'm traveling, I can't learn. No, there's a mitzvah to travel. Al derech omer, as it says, a mitzvah saseh uvalechdecha v'derech. While you're traveling, you should work. And how do I see that from this pasuk? In Bechukotai teilechu. If when you walk, you learn, that's a special thing. Okay, it's very easy when you're in the Beis Medrash to learn, because what else are you going to do? Now you have to go to work. You have to walk to work. You have to travel for business. You're going on vacation. So you have doing the thing. You have to try to learn when you can. Now, sometimes it's not possible, but when you can, you either put a shir on, download a shir, try to memorize a couple of mishnayos that you know, and just repeat it over and over. Or you can say Tehillim over and over. That's a mitzvah in itself, and that's why it says Bechukotai teilechu. So that is pshat number one of the word Bechukotai. Essentially, it involves that you should learn the Torah, even though you learned it one time, 2 times, is a special mitzvah to learn it again. Okay? In addition to learn in the morning and night, and in addition to learn even while you're traveling. Okay? Now we're going to learn the second pshat. Oid yitzal derech ma she'amru b'pasuk chishafti d'rochai. David HaMelech said, I considered my ways. David choshev l'asas inyanim, and a fascinating thing. Sometimes a person, out of habit, does things even though he doesn't want to do it. If a person pays attention, he'll see automatically he does things habit. Right? Even though he doesn't want to do it, or he's thinking about something else. David HaMelech said that there were many times that I was thinking about doing one thing, but because I was so accustomed and I was so in the habit of learning, my feet automatically took me to the Beis Medrash. Nobody likes to learn initially. It takes time. But once you get into the habit, you automatically are going, because it becomes part of your routine. And that's what David HaMelech said. David choshev l'asas inyanim. David HaMelech was thinking of doing something. V'raglav ma'lichin oisam atzma l'Beis Medrash. His feet took them on their own to the Beis Medrash. L'roi v'chefetz v'arotzim regilus v'davar. Right? Very partial example. A person goes to a train every day a certain way. So automatically, when it comes out of this house, even if he wanted to go the other way, he automatically will start to go the other way. He may have to stop in the middle and then turn around, but because of his habit, he automatically goes a certain way. Person drives a certain way. Many times this happens. Even though you wanted to go somewhere else, but because you normally go this way to go to a certain place, you automatically will go to that way. So therefore, that is what it says in Bechukotai teilechu. If you are so accustomed to my learning that automatically your feet take you to there, that shows that you're on the right path, and then you're going to get the bracha. That's the second shot. Why does it say Chukotai plural? Because everybody knows there's 4 ways to learn the Torah. How is that? Pshat, the simple pshat, remez, drush, and soit. And from there's also an additional 70 explanations. That's why it says the word Chukotai lashon rabim teilechu. You should go. Chukotai teilechu, in whatever way and paths and shortcuts and side things and all other things that you find. In terminology, it's called rabbit chutes. Right? You go one way and all of a sudden you find 5 other different things. You should go, and the Torah will be success. Because you should, and don't think there's only pshat in the Torah. You should know that there's not only pshat, even in Gemara, even in Rashi, even in Tosfos. There's much deeper and deeper and deeper. You just have to have the schus, and you have to know how to search for it. But there's 70 explanations in the Torah, not just pshat. We'll stop over here, and Mr. Shem, the next year we'll continue the next series of pshatim in Bechukotai.